Hello everybody and welcome to the video. I just want to jump right into this. Now, as you can see, this is from the University of Kingsland in Australia. Now, as you can clearly see, and bear with me, I know you guys can't really see it here, but I'm going to read it to you. And I'm going to put this site or source in the description. Now it says right here, melanin considered for bio-friendly electronics. Now what does that mean? I'm gonna read it. Now mind you folks, this is really old news. It's even before 2012, but mind you that this article came out in June 27th of 2012. And let me read this to you. Melanin, the pigment that colors skin, eyes, and hair, could soon be the face of a new generation of biological friendly electronic devices used in applications such as medical sensors and tissue stimulation treatments. Led by Professor Paul Meredith and Associate Professor Ben Powell at the University of Kingsland, an international team of scientists has published a study that for the first time gives remarkable insight into the electrical properties of this pigment and its biological compatible bioelectric features. Semiconductors are arguably the most important modern-day high-tech material, and listen to this, they drive all modern electronics. Now let me speak on that for a little bit here, about them semiconductors being, they drive modern technology. Now, melanin is a semiconductor, okay? Now, everything technology can do, we were able to do with the human body and more. Anything. Name it, and it was possible. I'm talking anything from superhuman strength to manipulating gravity. Okay, so when I talk about technologies being able to do anything, I'm talking about for people who don't know, the government, we all know that they're using time machines and warp drives and things of this nature. The body and the consciousness alone, because the consciousness through the body is able to allow the body to move through and allow it to do that. Because remember that the reason why it's even allowed is because, first of all, the physical body is not even really solid. It's 99.9% empty space because we're made up of atoms. So with that being said, when the consciousness is in full effect and the melanin is at its fullest potential, we'll be able to walk through space and time. There's a show called Fringe, and there was a girl, I think she was the main star of the show, but she was able to, at one point, she had to actually walk through time, or actually to another universe. So they had to unlock her mind to the point where she can walk through time, because they were doing experiments with her and all that. I'm going to show a picture of that. You guys definitely got to see that show. But let me get more into this here. The majority of semiconductors are made from organic elements or compounds such as silicon or gallium. Organic semiconductors, on the other hand, are a relatively new member of the semiconductor family and are composed of molecules containing carbon, hydrogen, and other elements. Now, this is where, people listen to this. There are very few examples of natural organic semiconductors, and melanin was thought to be the very first example, demonstrated to be such in the early 70s, said Professor Meredith. Okay, now they've been knowing about this stuff since the early damn 70s. Okay, so you are your own natural superconductor. Okay, that's what you need to understand. and the people who produce melanin. And that's why we're being attacked on a constant basis, because, and I mentioned this in the first part of this particular strain of videos, that you are connected to the dark energy that surrounds or makes up the physical universe. So whatever you think or however you feel, that's what the physical universe is going to be made up of. You understand? Now, I wanted to get into the history here of Africa and all that. Now, they said they discovered a 200,000-year-old metropolis in Africa. Now, if you ever heard of Michael Tillinger, I suggest you look him up. He explains how the things that they found, right, they serve like geometrical patterns, and they produce this subtle energy that may be portals to the realms that the beings that were here before come from. Understand what I'm saying? And at one point in time, we were able to use these portals to, like I said, like again, you don't really need the portals. This was for just a mass scale thing. So if you can bring people over who weren't able to walk through time by using the power of their own mind. Now, when I talk about the mind, we're talking about the oversoul. We're not talking about the brain. We're talking about the energy that is produced around you, which one will call their aura. I call it the oversoul because it's connected. It is that thing or that particular substance that is connected with you, but yet is on another plane. Now, I go into depth with that already in my other video. Time travel is already possible. And I keep forgetting the guy's name, but I think it's Mishimu Mukaku. He talks about how the dinosaurs coexist with us, as well as the Civil War and all these other historical events that already took in place. And that the reason for that is because it's taking place because we're not on the same frequency. That's why we're not experiencing it. But it's happening as we speak right now. Now, these portals could be used and open to bend space and time, to get from one side of the universe to the other, and also to walk into other dimensions. Time travel, okay, because this is the manipulation of matter to the highest degree. And this is what they discovered in Africa. Now, these energies are still there to this day for the children. But if you listen to Bobby Hemmett will tell you that we are the parents of the gods that are ruling now. That's why we're in the state we're in now. But that's a story for a different day. Okay? Now, look at what they're finding underwater. And this stuff still exists because of the melanin and the full potential we had. Look at this. This is underwater. 16-foot Egyptian statues discovered. Okay? Look at this. See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? So, this is what people need to understand. They're finding this all underwater because at a time when we ruled, when the Melanites ruled, and it was only one landmass, Pangea, we fell to a low state. That's why even all the land masses are split. You guys ain't understanding the symbology to this stuff. You know what I mean? Again, this is duality. When we came down to this particular dimension, the third density, we fell to duality. That's why everything just split apart, and it was slowly, gradually happening to that point. Now we're slowly, gradually returning to the point where where we'll be gods and goddesses again, or supernormal beings. We'll be able to have perform supernatural feats. And to tell you the truth, it never really left. That's why everybody was able to do certain things. And like, if you watch the Olympics or any sport, you'll see that the people who are melanated do things that they break world records. You understand what I'm saying? So that's all I'm saying. And that's how they even made the pyramids as well. Like I said, manipulation of time, matter, sound, all that. This is how they even made the Olmec heads, which after thousands of years they're still pristine, and they're still in a pristine state. So and scientists are straight baffled by this. So, you know, there's really not much you can say at this point who the people of the Melanites were. They were beyond anything we can possibly imagine at this time, because they were directly connected to the dark energy. So basically, they were getting knowledge from just by going within. Because remember, there's a non-locality when it comes to gaining knowledge, and that melanin basically was able to allow them to tap into all of that. Okay. So, like I said before, and I'll say it again, melanin considered for biofriendly electronics. So remember, folks, that's anything from your high-powered telescopes to your MRIs, your X-ray, brain scans. They now have a machine where you can levitate things with sound now. I'll put that in the description. And there's a woman, I'm going to play the clip. Thank you for listening, and now I'm going to play the clip of Dr. Brown, her talking about melanin and getting more in depth about it. And she talks about something interesting, how we at one point might have been green. And she gets into that. So I hope you enjoy that, and peace and love to the gods and goddesses.
Going to go on and bring on Dr. Ann Brown. Peace and greetings to you, Dr. Brown.
Hello.
Greetings. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
I am wonderful. It is an honor to have you to come on and share. As I was telling you when we had an opportunity to speak, I've actually kind of been searching for a contact for you for over 3 years, particularly when I started to get into my studies about melanin and those works. I'm not even really 100% sure how I came about your name. I know it was a slew of yourself and others, as well as Dr. Richard King and others that had done things with melanin, particularly at that. I know you are the contributing author of Why Darkness Matters, The Keys to Melanin in the Brain. That's one of the projects, as well as many others that you have worked on. So it's good to have you here in the house tonight. And I know this is your first time for being on the remix. What I would love for you to do is just sort of kind of let everybody know who you are, a little bit about your background, and we can begin to start the share from there.
Okay, my name is Ann Brown. I'm a professor at a community college called Medgar Evers, and I did my undergraduate. One of them was in microbiology at the University of New Hampshire, and then I did a microbiology, that's a master's in micro. Then I worked at Pfizer, and then I went to the Westchester Medical Center to the medical school there, and I did a master's in anatomy, and then finally a PhD in medical anatomy. So I'm an anatomist.
Yes, anatomist. Love it,
Yeah.
love it. Beautiful and powerful as well. I want to start out by talking because there's so much that we get when it comes to information. But I know yourself, this is a particular love for you when it comes to not only us as people, but really just understanding that anatomy and the effects of melanin. So can you let everybody know from your research what you know to be true yourself, your studies, and all of your spiritual work? What is melanin?
Yes. There's some controversy as to what it really is, but from my work and knowledge and training, it is the black material that's located in the brain. If you read Frank Barr's medical hypothesis, there was a whole journal on melanin. He doesn't speak out. He writes, and he leaves it at that. But he said that melanin is an organizing molecule. That is, it is at the center of every function in the body. And I add to that by saying that it is a pigment located in the body, and it attracts a certain vibrational energy, and so it organizes every single function in the body. It is dependent on this black material that we call melanin.
That we actually call melanin.
Yes.
Now, when it comes to us understanding melanin, is there a difference between us of African descent and having melanin and others?
Well, they break it down. The New York Academy of Sciences breaks it down into 4 classes. The one, when you see the term EU melanin, the EU prefix means good, well, efficient. That means that it is the black to brown material, amorphous, and is found in all throughout life, throughout the earth. And that means that it is a molecule that vibrates at a certain frequency and also vibrate those things or that material around it. So this is like the good melanin. It takes all the light rays in and it utilizes them, changes it into a consciousness level, and it makes the body work. That's the first type. So that's the brown to black, and that one is found in the eyes, the skin, in melanomas, in the hair, in feathers, and so on, and is derived biochemically from an amino acid called tyrosine. Mm-hmm. Then there's a second type that we call pheomelanin, that means dusky, and that has proteins with sulfur, such as dopamine or cis-dopa, and that's found in hair, fur, feathers, and it is a pheochrome or crystalline pheochrome. The Caucasians have that. The first type is in people of African origin or people that are heavily pigmented. In the second type, the pheomelanins, that's found in Caucasian, and that's a different chemistry than the eumelanin. The third type is called allomelanins, and that is brown to black, and it's nitrogen-free. It doesn't have any nitrogens in it, and it is found in the fungus of the soil and in dark soil. And the last one is the neuromelanin, and that's brain melanin. That's the one that I'm very highly interested in, and this is found all in the central nervous system of humans and vertebrates. And there are different substrates that it is associated with, such as the neurotransmitter called dopamine, and tyrosine, and epinephrine, norepinephrine, serotonin, and so forth. Does that answer it?
Yes,
okay.
Definitely did, and really give a good understanding about understanding melanin. So I guess it's safe to say, Dr. Brown, that everyone has some form of melanin.
Yes, that's correct. And it depends on the chemistry that makes it different.
Okay. And that's what makes the difference. Now, I noticed as you were describing melanin, and one of the things that I've seen as well, too, when we begin to look at nature and we begin to look at the plants and we begin to look at ourselves, melanin and the plant and the plants on the planet really have a lot of similarities. You want to talk about that?
Oh, sure. All the plants have some form of pigment, and some of them you can't tell until they have come to the end of their life. Most of them that we know about have chlorophyll in them. So melanin and chlorophyll are very, very much related. Chlorophyll has in its core of the molecule magnesium. If you compare that to hemoglobin has iron in its core molecule, and that if you take blood, for example, and put it on the desk and leave it, say, overnight and it dries, it's going to turn black, which means that in one form it's red, and another form it is black. So black material, which we call melanin, is really found in all the plants because most of them have green pigmentation. So maybe at one point we were green people, you know. I mean, it's kind of far-fetched, but the chemistry is very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take bacteria, take fungus. If you the bread molds that you see when they ripe, the ripened bread mold is really black, has a black head with spores in it, and if you break that head open containing the spores and it falls down on the bread, it produces more of the like kind. So pigment or black material is found in from the stratosphere to the hydrosphere to the ionosphere to the earth and the water in the sea, deep in the water, etc. So it's found everywhere in nature. There's pigment.
Yes, I can definitely see that. Even when we go back to study sort of our ancient ancestors in Kemet, often you would see the god of Thoth depicted as green, really showing that reflection there as well. Now, the next question I want to ask you, because I know that melanin, and as it functions with that power and really just being active in the brain, when it comes to male and female, and we're talking about us as African, is there a difference in how melanin functions within our two physical bodies?
I don't think you can make that kind of difference. There are some other factors that make us male and female differences. Most of it is biological, and then the other we can't explain. It's endowed by the Creator. Right. But I can tell you that in every nerve in the body, and there are trillions of them, many of them in the brain. If you look in the brain, and we have cut the cadaver brain and sections or slices, and as we go deeper into the brain, we see more black material. That part of the brain that has the highest amount of black material is the midbrain, and we call that area substantia nigra, which means a substantial amount of black material is there. Now, people will argue that that black material in the dead precipitated as waste, and I cannot perceive of that, you know, because I know in the cell, in the cytoplasmic area of the nerve, of every nerve, there are some particles. Those particles contain a black pigment, and that they call them Nissl substance. That, the way I explain it in my experience, is that the black material is there like little batteries, little crystalline batteries, so that when the impulse travels from one nerve to another nerve containing a cell body, which they all do, it's going to re-energize the impulse and send it on its way. That continuously flows back and forth throughout the brain where there are nerves, and I call that consciousness. Once that stops, then there's death. There's no consciousness.
And there's no consciousness. So when it comes to us as women and during the cycles, our menses, and because we have that blood flowing, how does that impact us as women with the blood flowing and melanin, since melanin does travel in every essence of our being?
Well, that has to do with the effect of nature on people in general, because I think all people have that same kind of experience, and it means
Yeah.
then that that's a measure now of whether or not, you mentioned bleeding, whether or not we're pregnant or not. That's kind of an abnormal process, but it has become a normacy as a measure to determine whether you're pregnant or not. In my own feeling, I think it's sort of on an illogical side to go around bleeding. But as I said, the only way you can know, or one way you can know that you have begun to expect, that is a new life, is by the stoppage of the blood flow. So as melanated people, there's no difference there between us and other people. But I can tell you there's an old copy, and I don't have it with me, published by the University of Chicago Press, that says that African peoples have thicker blood than other people, which means that the viscosity of the red blood cell flow, or that flow in the bloodstream, is more dense than some other people. Now, that needs to be really researched in modern times to see if that's, if that's still true. So we as a people, as a melanated people, need to do things to continue to rebuild our melanin chemistry and to maintain it. You do it through eating raw foods. Foods have pigments. So you eat raw foods, then the body's cells and tissues and organs then have what it needs to create new melanin, because I think it's a turnover, a continuous kind of process. And I do know, and I've seen this when we open the brain and make the slices, that deep in the brain there are black centers. And some people have predicted that there are at least 12 centers in the brain that is black. Some are more than others. I mentioned in the midbrain, the substantia nigra is that area where it's more dense. And another part called the locus coeruleus also is a part where it's more dense. So if that melanin is destroyed, or if the neurons containing it are destroyed, and the dopamine that they, as a neurotransmitter that they release, if those are out of balance and reduced, then you don't have a system of maintaining skeletal muscle control, and you start to tremble, and we call that Parkinson's. So Parkinson's is either a reduction in the number of neurons in that black area, a reduction in the blackness that's there, and in the reduction of the dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter.
Right. So the goal really is to keep ourselves sort of in that place of optimum health, particularly us as highly melanated people, is to really begin to eat those foods, those raw foods that will help to regenerate melanin, or is it in fact actually creating more melanin? It's
both. Creating more and regenerating, which is really the same thing. So if you have the pigments, and you supply the body with the pigments unheated, then the body can do what it has to do with them and maintain that homeostatic balance that nature put